The holographic interface hummed with a soft blue glow, casting ethereal shadows across Admiral Krulax's scaled features. His species, the Zorn, had perfected long-range surveillance to an art form that bordered on technological mysticism. Thousands of star systems were monitored simultaneously, their data streams cascading through quantum processors that could parse information faster than most biological minds could comprehend. Yet nothing could have prepared him for the anomaly that appeared on screen that standard cycle. Earth, a planet most galactic civilizations dismissed as primitive. A backwater world of limited technological development and fractious global politics. The Zorn Confederacy had classified it as a developing species, which was bureaucratic shorthand for not worth serious attention. Most advanced civilizations maintained passive observation protocols, expecting humanity to follow predictable developmental patterns. Technological growth, internal conflicts, potential self-destruction. The surveillance feed originated from a residential sector in what humans called suburban Houston. A simple living quarters, unremarkable in every conceivable way. Neutral wall coverings, scattered educational materials. And there, seated before a holographic interface that seemed almost too advanced for her species, sat Emily Rodriguez. 10 years old, 142 centimeters tall, 63 pounds. Caucasian Hispanic genetic heritage, currently wearing noise-canceling headphones with quantum-adaptive sound filtering, a technological detail that momentarily distracted Krulax from his primary observation. Her fingers moved with a precision that defied her apparent age. The simulator before her was a standard human entertainment product. Stellar Conquest, Galactic Frontiers, a game marketed as a strategic simulation for young enthusiasts interested in space exploration and interstellar conflict management. Most species would have categorized it as a simple recreational activity, children playing at being Starship commanders. Krulax knew better. His specialized training in xenological intelligence assessment meant he rarely took anything at face value, where others saw a child's game. He detected something extraordinary. Emily's approach to the simulator transcended typical juvenile interaction patterns. She was not simply playing. She was solving. Each decision carried a calculated complexity that would challenge veteran military strategists. When the simulation presented a resource management scenario, a typical challenge involving limited energy reserves and multiple potential planetary colonization routes, Emily didn't just select the most obvious path. She analyzed, predicted, innovated. The simulator's advanced AI, designed to adapt and challenge players, seemed to be learning from her unconventional approaches. Where programmed algorithms suggested conservative expansion strategies, Emily introduced dynamic variables that transformed potential failure scenarios into opportunities for unprecedented growth. Krulax adjusted the surveillance feed, zooming microscopic sensors to capture minute details. Her breathing pattern, subtle muscular movements, neurological response metrics that most monitoring systems would consider irrelevant. Each micro-expression told a story far more complex than the visual representation suggested. A half-empty nutrient container sat beside her. Remnants of what humans called chocolate milk marked its rim. Scattered notebook pages contained hand-drawn schematics, not just game-related strategies, but complex geometric patterns that seemed to map potential spatial navigation techniques. Most fascinating was her emotional state. Complete concentration. No visible stress markers. Her brain was operating at a frequency that suggested she was simultaneously experiencing multiple potential scenario outcomes, selecting the most optimal path with an intuition that bordered on predictive mathematics. This was not a child playing a game. This was a nascent strategic intelligence expressing itself through what humans perceived as entertainment. Krulax made a decision in that moment. This required deeper investigation. Whatever was happening in this modest living quarters represented something far more significant than a simple surveillance log entry. Humanity, it seemed was going to be far more interesting than any galactic database had ever suggested. The Zorn Confederacy's Central Intelligence Archive contained millennia of documented species interactions. Countless civilizations had been studied, catalogued, and ultimately classified. Yet nothing in their extensive records prepared Krelax for the anomaly he discovered during his continued observation of Emily Rodriguez. Night cycles became an obsession. While his fellow admirals pursued standard diplomatic protocols, Krelax meticulously analyzed every microsecond of Emily's interactions with the Stellar Conquest simulator. What initially appeared as a simple game revealed itself as a complex cognitive laboratory. The simulator's adaptive artificial intelligence was designed to challenge players with increasingly difficult scenarios. Most children would eventually reach a skill plateau, their strategies becoming predictable and limited. Emily defied every computational expectation. In one particularly remarkable sequence, the game presented a scenario involving a resource-scarce planetary system with multiple competing colonization interests. Standard player responses typically followed prescribed paths: conservative expansion, risk-minimized resource allocation, defensive positioning. Emily's approach was radically different. She didn't just play the scenario. She reimagined it. Where the simulator's AI expected linear problem-solving, Emily introduced multi-dimensional strategic thinking. She recognized that resource scarcity was not a limitation, but an opportunity for innovative solution development. Her strategy involved creating symbiotic relationships between seemingly incompatible colonization groups, transforming potential conflict into collaborative advancement. Krelax found himself reviewing the sequence repeatedly. Each review revealed new layers of complexity. The child was not merely playing a game. She was conducting a real-time strategic thought experiment. Quantum analysis modules in the Zorn observation system began to generate increasingly complex predictive models. Emily's decision-making process didn't follow traditional logic trees. Instead, her brain seemed to operate on a fundamentally different computational frequency: intuitive, adaptive, constantly recalibrating. The surveillance team initially dismissed Krelax's findings. "It's just a child playing a game," they argued. But he knew better. He had spent centuries studying intelligent species across multiple galactic sectors. This was something unprecedented. Comparative analysis became his next approach. Krelax pulled records of strategic simulations from dozens of advanced civilizations, Cylonian military academies, Centaurian navigation schools, quantum probability institutes from the merged Stellar Cooperative. None displayed the same level of intuitive strategic thinking that emerged from this single human child. Emily's gameplay revealed a cognitive approach that was simultaneously chaotic and structured. She didn't just react to the simulator's challenges, she anticipated them. Her mind seemed to exist in multiple potential outcome states simultaneously, selecting the most optimal path with an ease that suggested an entirely new form of intelligence. The noise-canceling headphones she wore were more than simple audio equipment. Krelax's advanced sensors detected quantum-level neural synchronization patterns. The device wasn't just blocking external sound. It was creating an optimal cognitive environment for strategic processing. Most fascinating were the moments between her active gameplay. When Emily stepped away from the simulator, she would sketch complex geometric patterns in a well-worn notebook. These weren't random doodles. They were strategic mapping systems that seemed to extend her in-game thinking into physical representation. Her parents, unaware of the extraordinary nature of their child's activities, treated these moments as typical childhood creativity. They would occasionally remind her to complete homework or participate in family activities. Each interruption became another data point in Krelax's growing understanding. The child's ability to rapidly context switch between complex strategic thinking and typical childhood interactions was itself a remarkable cognitive feature. She wasn't a prodigy in the traditional sense. She represented something far more significant: a potential evolutionary leap in strategic intelligence. As another station cycle completed, Krell realized he was witnessing something extraordinary. This was not just about one child or one species. This was about the fundamental nature of intelligent adaptation. Humanity, it seemed, was going to change everything. The revelation came not from a single breakthrough, but from a complex web of interconnected discoveries that challenged everything the Zorn Confederacy understood about human potential. Krell initial fascination with Emily Rodriguez expanded into a comprehensive investigation that revealed a startling truth. She was not an isolated phenomenon, but part of a deliberately cultivated ecosystem of strategic thinking. Quantum encrypted data streams revealed a network more intricate than any galactic intelligence system. Community centers, online forums, after-school programs. Each was a node in a massive decentralized learning platform that transformed human children into adaptive problem solvers. In Seattle, a 12-year-old named Marcus developed supply chain optimization algorithms during a robotics club competition. His project didn't just solve theoretical problems. It presented solutions so elegant that they caught the attention of international logistics corporations. What appeared to be a school project was actually a sophisticated exercise in complex systems management. A group of middle school students in Mumbai created a collaborative simulation platform that allowed participants from different geographical regions to solve increasingly complex global challenges. Their system incorporated elements of game theory, environmental modeling, and social dynamics that would challenge most advanced research institutions. The Zorn surveillance network began to piece together a disturbing pattern. These were not isolated incidents of individual brilliance. This was a species-wide approach to cognitive development that treated strategic thinking as a fundamental skill, much like language or basic mathematics. Online platforms designed as educational tools became breeding grounds for innovative thinking. Children from diverse backgrounds shared strategies, challenged each other's assumptions, and developed increasingly sophisticated approaches to complex problem-solving. What appeared to be simple gaming communities were actually distributed intelligence networks. Krell discovered community forums where children discussed simulation strategies with a level of depth that would impress senior military strategists. They didn't just play games. They deconstructed them, analyzed them, transformed them into learning experiences that pushed the boundaries of computational thinking. A neural network analysis revealed something even more extraordinary. These children were not just consuming information, they were actively evolving their collective intelligence. Each shared strategy, each discussed approach became part of a larger adaptive learning system. The Zorn's most advanced predictive models struggle to comprehend the complexity of this network. Traditional hierarchical intelligence systems were linear and predictable. This human approach was organic, fluid, constantly reshaping itself. In a community center in Buenos Aires, a program designed to teach strategic thinking to underprivileged children became a laboratory of human potential. Children from diverse socioeconomic backgrounds learned advanced problem-solving techniques that transformed their understanding of complex systems. The most fascinating aspect was the collaborative nature of their learning. Where most species viewed intelligence as an individual trait, humans treated it as a collective resource. Failure was not a limitation, but a learning opportunity. Each unsuccessful strategy became data for future improvement. Krell research team uncovered educational initiatives that seemed almost revolutionary. Schools that replaced traditional testing with complex simulation challenges. Community programs that encouraged children to develop solutions for real-world problems. Online platforms that transformed learning into a collaborative, global experience. The simulator Emily had been using was just one small window into a much larger phenomenon. Humanity was cultivating a form of distributed intelligence that defied conventional understanding. They were not just preparing for future challenges, they were actively creating the cognitive tools to address them. As another data stream completed its analysis, Krell realized they were witnessing something unprecedented. This was not just about individual potential. This was about a species that had discovered how to amplify its collective intelligence through carefully designed learning ecosystems. Humanity was playing a much larger game, and most of the galaxy hadn't even realized the match had begun. The quantum archives of the Zorn Confederacy held millennia of species documentation, but none told a story quite like humanity's. Krulax found himself diving deeper into Earth's historical records, searching for the origins of the extraordinary adaptive potential he had witnessed. What emerged was a narrative of continuous transformation that defied conventional evolutionary patterns. Humans had emerged from primitive conditions with an unprecedented capacity for innovation. Where most species developed specialized adaptations, humanity embraced radical generalization. From stone tools to quantum computing, they transformed limitations into opportunities with a speed that challenged comprehension. The archaeological records told a remarkable story. Early humans survived not through physical superiority, but through collaborative problem-solving. They developed complex communication systems, created tools that extended their physical capabilities, and adapted to environments that would have destroyed most other species. Each technological leap appeared to be less about the technology itself and more about the cognitive approach. The wheel wasn't just a mechanical innovation. It represented a fundamental reimagining of mobility. Agricultural developments weren't simply about food production. They were complex, systemic transformations of human interaction with their environment. Krulax's analysis revealed a pattern of exponential adaptive capabilities. The development of written language created a mechanism for preserving and expanding collective knowledge. Communication technologies multiplied their ability to share and process information. Each technological stage became a platform for the next quantum leap. Most fascinating was humanity's approach to failure. Where other species saw setbacks as terminal events, humans treated them as data points for future improvement. The early aviation attempts of the Wright brothers, multiple failed attempts culminating in a breakthrough that transformed global transportation, perfectly illustrated this approach. The digital revolution demonstrated their most remarkable trait. Within a few decades, humans transformed from analog communication to a globally interconnected information network. What other species would have taken millennia to develop, they accomplished in a single generational cycle. Scientific discoveries showed a consistent pattern of interdisciplinary thinking. Breakthrough innovations rarely came from specialized experts working in isolation. Instead, they emerged from collaborative spaces where different knowledge domains intersected. A medical breakthrough might originate from a conversation between a biologist and a computer engineer. Historical records of human exploration provided additional insights. Their space exploration programs represented more than technological achievement. They were elaborate problem-solving exercises that pushed the boundaries of human creativity. Each mission was a complex simulation that required unprecedented levels of collaborative intelligence. The development of artificial intelligence revealed another layer of their extraordinary potential. Unlike most species that feared technological advancement, humans sought to create systems that could augment their own cognitive capabilities. They were not just users of technology. They were its primary architects and reimaginers. Educational systems emerged as crucial infrastructure for this continuous adaptation. Where other civilizations saw education as information transfer, humans treated it as a mechanism for developing adaptive thinking. Learning was not about memorization, but about developing the capacity to solve previously unconsidered problems. Military and diplomatic historical records showed another remarkable trait. Humans demonstrated an ability to transform conflict into opportunity. Diplomatic solutions often emerged from creative reframing of seemingly intractable challenges. Their negotiation strategies defied traditional zero-sum thinking. The simulator Emily used was not an aberration. It was a contemporary manifestation of a species-wide approach to understanding complex systems. Each generation built upon the cognitive tools developed by previous generations, creating an accelerating cycle of innovative potential. As another data stream completed its analysis, Krulax realized he was witnessing something far more significant than the development of a single species. Humanity represented a unique model of intelligent adaptation, a living laboratory of cognitive potential that continuously redefined the boundaries of possibility. The galaxy had been watching humanity, but humanity had been reimagining the galaxy. The Interstellar Council Chamber stood as a testament to millions of years of galactic diplomacy. Floating above a crystalline platform that defied traditional gravitational understanding, representatives from 217 known intelligent species gathered for what they believed would be a routine strategic assessment. Admiral Krulax knew differently. The chamber's architecture reflected the collective achievements of multiple civilizations. Holographic interfaces shimmered with complex data streams. Translation matrices hummed with linguistic complexity. Each delegation occupied a precisely calibrated spatial zone, a physical manifestation of the intricate political balance that maintained galactic stability. Krulax's presentation began with calculated precision. The first holographic display showed Emily Rodriguez seated before her simulator. Surrounding this central image, multiple data streams illustrated her strategic decision-making process. Comparative analysis charts demonstrated how her approach differed from established problem-solving methodologies used by advanced civilizations. Silence descended. The Centaurian Diplomatic Corps, known for their emotionally restrained communication, showed the first signs of collective unease. Their neural link representatives began an immediate information exchange, their typically synchronized thought patterns becoming noticeably fragmented. "What you are witnessing," Krulax explained, his translator rendering his words in multiple linguistic frameworks, "is not an isolated incident of individual capability. This represents a systemic approach to cognitive development that challenges everything we understand about intelligent species progression." He activated the next data sequence. Hundreds of examples from human educational and developmental systems appeared simultaneously. Children solving complex logistical challenges, community networks transforming learning into collaborative problem-solving platforms, simulation environments that treated strategic thinking as a fundamental skill. The Tylonian chief analyst, a being composed of interconnected crystalline neural networks, leaned forward, their typical detached demeanor fractured momentarily, a sign of profound intellectual disruption. "These are children," the Tylonian representative stated, more as a question than a declaration. Krulax's response was measured. "These are humans developing a form of distributed intelligence that defies our current computational models. They are not just learning. They are actively evolving their collective cognitive capabilities." Diplomatic tensions began to build. The merged stellar cooperatives representatives initiated defensive communication protocols. The quantum consensus started running predictive models, their computational systems working at unprecedented speeds to understand the implications. Video sequences demonstrated how human children approached complex challenges, a 12-year-old developing supply chain optimization algorithms, an international network of students collaboratively solving environmental modeling challenges, educational platforms that transformed learning into a global adaptive intelligence network. "Humans do not see limitations," Krulax explained. "They see opportunities for reimagination." The chamber's ambient temperature seemed to drop. Species that had maintained galactic dominance for millennia found themselves confronting a fundamentally different approach to intelligence and development. The Centaurian lead diplomat finally spoke. "This presents significant strategic considerations. A species that treats cognitive development as a collective adaptive process represents an unprecedented evolutionary model." Krulax's final presentation sequence revealed the most disturbing information. Humans were not just developing these capabilities, they were deliberately creating educational and social systems that amplified their collective potential. Every failure became a learning opportunity, every challenge an invitation to innovate. Political fractures began to emerge. Some delegations saw potential collaboration. Others viewed humanity as an existential threat. The quantum consensus began running increasingly complex predictive models, each iteration revealing more about the extraordinary nature of human potential. "We are not discussing military capability," Krulax emphasized. "We are discussing a species that has discovered how to transform collective learning into a continuous evolutionary mechanism." The implications were staggering. Humanity was not just developing technology. They were creating adaptive intelligence ecosystems that could potentially reshape understanding of cognitive development across multiple species. As the presentation concluded, the Interstellar Council found itself at an unprecedented moment. The galaxy had been watching humanity, but humanity had been quietly reimagining the very concept of intelligence. The game had changed, and most species were only now realizing the match had begun. The Zorn research team's deep dive into human educational systems revealed a methodology so revolutionary that it challenged fundamental assumptions about intelligence development across known civilizations. Dr. Arya Chen's research center in Singapore became the primary focus of Krellax's investigation. What appeared to be a standard educational facility was, in reality, a sophisticated cognitive development laboratory disguised as a school. The facility operated on principles that seemed almost paradoxical to traditional learning approaches. Unlike rigid educational systems found in most advanced civilizations, this human institution treated learning as a dynamic, adaptive process. Classrooms were not fixed environments but flexible spaces that transformed based on learning objectives. Students didn't just receive information, they were active participants in knowledge creation. The center's primary methodology centered on what humans called problem-based learning. Traditional education sought to transfer existing knowledge. This approach invited students to develop entirely new knowledge frameworks. Complex challenges were presented not as problems to be solved, but as opportunities for collaborative exploration. In one remarkable session, a group of 10-year-old students was given a hypothetical scenario involving sustainable resource management on a fictional planetary colony. Instead of providing predetermined solutions, instructors created an environment that encouraged multiple approach strategies. Students worked in fluid teams, constantly reconfiguring their groups based on emerging insights. A child strong in mathematical modeling might collaborate with another, demonstrating advanced ecological understanding. Leadership was not a fixed role, but a dynamic function that shifted based on the specific challenges' requirements. The technology supporting this learning environment was equally fascinating. Adaptive learning interfaces tracked not just academic performance, but cognitive approach patterns. Each student's unique problem-solving methodology became a valuable data point for further educational refinement. Simulation technologies played a crucial role. What other species would consider advanced military training simulations, humans used as educational tools for children. These were not simple game-like experiences, but complex scenarios that required systems thinking, emotional intelligence, and collaborative strategy development. Krellax's team discovered that failure was not just accepted but deliberately engineered into the learning process. Students were encouraged to develop multiple solution approaches, understanding that the process of exploration was as valuable as the final outcome. This stood in stark contrast to educational systems that penalized incorrect attempts. Interdisciplinary thinking was not an academic concept, but a fundamental operational principle. A student might transition from mathematical modeling to ecological systems analysis to social dynamics communication in a single learning session. Boundaries between traditional academic disciplines became fluid, almost non-existent. The research center's most revolutionary aspect was its approach to individual potential. Where most civilizations categorized intelligence through standardized metrics, humans recognize multiple forms of cognitive capability. A student struggling with traditional academic metrics might demonstrate extraordinary problem-solving skills in collaborative environments. Psychological support systems were integrated seamlessly into the learning process. Emotional intelligence was treated as a critical skill, not a secondary consideration. Students learned to understand their cognitive processes, recognize their strengths, and develop strategies for continuous personal development. Technology played a supporting role rather than a dominating one. Adaptive learning interfaces provided personalized guidance, but the primary focus remained on human interaction, collaborative thinking, and creative exploration. Artificial intelligence was a tool for enhancement, not a replacement for human cognitive potential. The global nature of this approach became increasingly apparent. What Krelax observed was not isolated to a single research center or educational system. Online platforms, community learning networks, and collaborative digital spaces created a global infrastructure for continuous cognitive development. Most striking was the deliberate cultivation of adaptability. Students were not just learning existing knowledge, but developing the meta-skills necessary to continuously learn, unlearn, and relearn. Each educational experience was designed to expand cognitive flexibility. As the Zorn research team compiled their findings, a profound realization emerged. Humanity was not just educating its population. They were actively engineering a species-wide cognitive evolution. The traditional galactic understanding of intelligence development was being fundamentally reimagined. Humans were treating their educational systems as living, breathing organisms, constantly adapting, learning, and expanding their collective potential. What other civilizations saw as an educational process, humans had transformed into a sophisticated mechanism for continuous species-wide cognitive enhancement. The galaxy was about to encounter a civilization that didn't just learn about the universe. They were systematically developing the capability to reshape it. The revelation of humanity's extraordinary potential sent seismic tremors through the delicate political ecosystem of the Galactic Confederation. What began as a scientific presentation quickly transformed into a high-stakes diplomatic crisis that threatened to reshape interstellar relationships. The quantum consensus was the first to formulate a comprehensive response. Their advanced predictive models generated thousands of potential scenarios, each more alarming than the last. Humanity represented an unprecedented variable, a species with the potential to fundamentally alter existing galactic power structures through cognitive adaptation rather than traditional military or technological dominance. Three primary factions emerged within the Interstellar Council. The Aggressive Containment Coalition, led by the Krelax's own Zorn Confederacy and supported by the militaristic Xylonian clusters, advocated for preemptive strategic isolation. Their argument was straightforward. A species demonstrating such rapid adaptive potential posed an existential threat to established galactic hierarchies. We cannot allow an unpredictable species to destabilize centuries of carefully maintained political balance, argued the Xylonian chief strategist, her crystalline neural networks pulsing with calculated intensity. Humanity's ability to transform challenges into opportunities represents a fundamental disruption to known interstellar dynamics. The Collaborative Potential Alliance took a dramatically different approach. Representatives from the merged Stellar Cooperative and the Centaurian Diplomatic Corps saw humanity as a potential evolutionary catalyst. They argued that humanity's unique cognitive approach could solve challenges that had stymied galactic civilizations for millennia. "We are not facing a threat," declared the Centaurian lead diplomat. "We are witnessing the emergence of a species that could provide solutions to problems we have considered unsolvable." The Neutral Observation Network remained cautiously analytical. Their representatives proposed extensive study, careful monitoring, and gradual engagement. They recognized the potential risks but were equally fascinated by the unprecedented nature of human cognitive development. Intelligence gathering operations intensified. Every available resource was directed toward understanding the human approach to collective intelligence. Educational systems, community networks, online platforms, all became subjects of intense scrutiny. Diplomatic backchannels buzzed with increasingly complex negotiations. Some species proposed restrictive engagement protocols. Others suggested collaborative research initiatives. The most forward-thinking representatives recognized that traditional approaches would be ineffective against a species that transformed limitations into opportunities. The human response to these galactic deliberations was perhaps most surprising. Most species expected defensive posturing or aggressive expansion. Instead, humanity continued its path of collaborative innovation, seemingly unaware of the profound discussions happening light years away. Community learning networks expanded. Online platforms developed more sophisticated collaborative problem-solving environments. Children continued to treat complex challenges as invitations for creative exploration. Krelax found himself in a unique position. His initial research had transformed him from a detached observer to a critical voice of nuanced understanding. He recognized the profound implications of humanity's approach to intelligence and saw beyond the immediate political calculations. Classified diplomatic communications revealed increasing nervousness. The aggressive containment coalition began developing comprehensive isolation strategies. Technological quarantine protocols were drafted. Potential military scenarios were meticulously modeled. But each predictive model revealed the same fundamental challenge. How do you contain a species that transforms challenges into opportunities? The Zorn Confederacy's most advanced strategic analysts worked tirelessly. They developed increasingly complex scenarios, each more elaborate than the last. Diplomatic isolation, economic restrictions, technological barriers. Each potential strategy seemed to dissolve when confronted with humanity's adaptive capabilities. A breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Dr. Arya Chen, the same researcher whose educational center had been the subject of extensive study, published a comprehensive analysis of global collaborative learning networks. Her work demonstrated how human society was developing a form of distributed intelligence that transcended traditional understanding. The publication sent additional shockwaves through galactic political structures. It was not just a scientific paper. It was a manifesto of a new approach to collective cognitive development. As tensions mounted, a profound realization began to emerge. Humanity was not a threat to be contained. They were a potential evolutionary model that challenged fundamental assumptions about intelligence, collaboration, and species development. The galaxy stood at a precipice. Traditional power structures trembled. Established civilizations found their most fundamental assumptions under scrutiny. And somewhere, a child was playing a simulation, entirely unaware that they represented the potential future of intelligent life. In the quiet of his personal observation chamber, Admiral Krelax experienced a moment of profound revelation that would reshape his understanding of intelligent life. The holographic displays surrounding him told a story far more complex than any galactic database could capture. Multiple data streams converge, revealing the intricate tapestry of human potential, a species that defied every conventional understanding of cognitive development. Emily Rodriguez, the child who had first captured his attention, represented something far more significant than an individual anomaly. She was a living embodiment of a species-wide approach to intelligence that transformed challenge into opportunity, limitation into potential. Krelax's personal journey mirrored the broader galactic realization. What had begun as a routine surveillance mission had evolved into a fundamental reimagining of intelligent life's possibilities. The human approach was not about technological superiority or military might. It was about continuous adaptation, collaborative learning, and a remarkable ability to see potential where others saw barriers. The quantum archives revealed a stunning pattern. Humanity's developmental trajectory was unlike any documented species in galactic history. Most civilizations followed predictable paths of technological and social development. Humans rewrote the entire concept of development with each generation. Educational systems that treated learning as a dynamic, collaborative process. Community networks that transformed individual potential into collective intelligence. Digital platforms that allowed instantaneous knowledge sharing and collaborative problem solving. These were not isolated innovations. They were a systematic approach to cognitive evolution. Krelax reflected on the multiple diplomatic scenarios that had unfolded. The aggressive containment coalition strategies had dissolved like mist against humanity's adaptive capabilities. Traditional methods of species assessment, technological progression, military potential, resource management, became meaningless when confronted with a civilization that treated intelligence as a fluid, collaborative resource. The most advanced predictive models failed to capture the essence of human potential. Humanity did not just solve problems. They transformed the very nature of problem solving. Each challenge became an opportunity for collective reimagination. Personal stories emerged that challenged every preconceived notion. Children developing complex environmental solutions. Community networks solving intricate logistical challenges. educational systems that treated failure as a critical learning mechanism rather than a limitation. What the Galactic Confederation had failed to understand was the fundamental nature of human cognitive development. They were not just learning. They were creating entire ecosystems of collective intelligence that could adapt, transform, and reimagine themselves with unprecedented speed. The diplomatic tensions began to shift. Forward-thinking representatives recognized that humanity represented not a threat, but a potential evolutionary model for intelligent life. Their approach to collaborative problem-solving offered solutions to challenges that had stymied galactic civilizations for millennia. Krelax's personal research had transformed from a scientific investigation to a profound philosophical exploration. Humanity was not just a species to be studied. They were a living demonstration of intelligence's true potential, adaptive, collaborative, continuously evolving. The simulation technologies that had first captured his attention now appeared in a new light. What seemed like simple games were actually sophisticated cognitive development platforms. Children were not just playing. They were developing complex systems thinking, collaborative problem-solving skills, and adaptive intelligence. As another data stream completed its analysis, a fundamental truth emerged. Humanity's greatest strength was not in any single technological achievement or military capability. It was their ability to transform collective potential into a continuous mechanism of evolution. The galaxy had been watching humanity, but humanity had been quietly reimagining the very concept of intelligence. In the personal observation chamber, surrounded by the complex holographic displays, Krelax understood something profound. This was not about a single species or a single moment of discovery. This was about a fundamental reimagining of what intelligent life could become. Emily Rodriguez continued her game, unaware that her moments of play were rewriting the fundamental understanding of cognitive potential across the galaxy. Each decision, each creative approach, represented a thread in a larger tapestry of collective intelligence. The match had begun, and humanity was playing an entirely different game, one that most species hadn't even realized existed. As the holographic displays continued their complex dance of data and possibility, one thing became abundantly clear. The future of intelligent life would be written not by those who controlled resources, but by those who could continuously adapt, learn, and reimagine potential.